Hi, I'm Holly Rustic here with Grant Writing and Funding, and I'm here to help you grow capacity, increase funding, and advance mission. All right, guys, so today we are going to be talking about how to get clients. So 4 proven ways to get clients as a grant writer. And this is also good for those of you who work with a nonprofit, because these are some things that you can be looking out for if you are looking at hiring a freelance grant writer or even an internal grant writer. All right, guys, so make sure you go to grantwritingandfunding.com/74 to download your free checklist that goes over all of these different items that we're going to talk about today. And there's also a little quiz in there to put to kind of answer some questions. So I'm going to identify what those questions may be here. All right, so let's just go ahead and get into it. So a lot of times people, they want to become a freelance grant writer. They want to get out there and they're like, I'm just going to go write for nonprofits. All right, so here's the thing, you guys. There's a lot of different things you have to look at when you're wanting to become a freelance writer. Or maybe you already are a freelance grant writer, but you're just not pulling in the clients. You just don't really feel that successful. And maybe it's because you're trying to go after everybody and you don't really understand your own strengths, right? So we're going to help you today. All right, so here's the first thing you need to know when you're looking at securing more clients is you need to understand that there are a variety of nonprofits. There are 3 main categories. So maybe you're trying to hit one category that you're just not that familiar with, or that you think you're great with, but maybe you're not, right? Maybe you have some other skills. So those 3 main categories are the type of nonprofit, super big, think, I used the example before, but like Habitat for Humanity, these huge nonprofits, right? And they're very well established. Maybe 20% of their annual operating revenue is from grants, right? They get federal grants, they get foundation grants, and what I like to call those are the cash cows. No, I wouldn't call them that to their face, right? So I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying they get a lot of money. They're good on the revenue. They get money coming in. They're well established in their communities. They have a really good team. They are very organized. So the pros with working with these types of nonprofits, the cash cow, right, is that they have their items together. Like, they already have a lot of their documents. Usually they have fiscal policies and procedures. They have their HR policies and protocols. They have resumes already in the door. They have their board of directors very strong. So there's a lot of things in place. So it can be very pleasant on that side working with a large nonprofit. Another pro is that they have existing grants that haven't been awarded that they have written. And a lot of times they'll give those to you, the grant writer, so you can pull different things from those grants that have been successful and apply those to the new projects that they're developing or new grants. Or maybe they even got rejected for a grant application in previous years, but they have the feedback from the grantor, the funding source, right? And you're able to just really adapt those. So it can take a lot less work on your end as a grant writer when working with these larger nonprofits. Funding begets funding, The cons to working with these larger nonprofits is, one, a lot of times they already have internal grant writers, right? They have larger budgets. They already have these grant writers in place that have been writing for years, and they don't need you, all right? But one exception could be if they have an internal grant writer, but they're going after more grants, and they need to hire someone as just a backup to help, just with those additional kind of things, right? So additional grants coming up. Or maybe their internal grant writer is, taking a short leave, taking a long holiday, taking maternity leave, and they need to hire someone in the meantime. So you could get your foot into the door that way, absolutely. Another con is that they can be way more selective with who they're hiring. So you may have to go to them after you've been established and a little bit more seasoned, right, when you've had more experience. All right, so those are some things that you can think about, the pros and cons of the larger nonprofit, the Costco. All right, the second type of nonprofit, I like to call it the expanding monkey. So anyways, we're going with animals here. And that is because, I'm looking at mid-sized nonprofits. Maybe those that have gotten some funding, maybe all they've gotten are foundation grants, or maybe all they've gotten are federal grants. So there's a lot of room for growth there. But they have gotten some grants, they have gotten some funding. Maybe they're developing a new project, that sort of thing. So, and the cons of working with, let's go with pros first. The pros of working with them are that you can be a little bit more creative because they're really expanding projects. So maybe you like to be more creative and you like to develop projects, then you'd be working with them. Another pro, of course, is that usually they at least have some of their documents together. They have a board of directors that's been around for a while, so you have some of those pros that you have with the large cash cow as well. Cons working with these types of nonprofits, the mid-size, are that sometimes you do have to do a little bit of developing of policies and procedures. Maybe they have some, but they're super outdated, so you have to update them, that sort of thing. So there's a little bit more work on your side. And with working with these sides of nonprofits, the mid-size, you're also going to be working with a variety of nonprofits. So that is really, really good. All right, so let's go to the next type of nonprofit. The next type of nonprofit is what I like to call the pup. And the pup is really the startup nonprofit. They're the ones who, they're just trying to get grants. Maybe they've got just a couple of smaller ones or just a little bit of funding, but not all that much, or maybe no grants at all, or maybe they're looking at developing completely new projects. So very startup, right? So those types of nonprofits, the pros of working with them, all right, one of the major pros is that you as a grant writer, it's really exciting when you get a nonprofit their first grant or their first big grant, their first federal grant. It is simply life-changing. It's a lot of fun. So if you love to work with passionate, grassroots, nose to the ground, a lot of people that are doing a lot of the work at the nonprofit, then this might be you, right? You might really target these startups. So it's a lot of fun, and just, they're expanding new projects, so it's really, really fun to work with them. But one of the cons, let's look at some of the cons. The cons with working with startup nonprofits is a lot of times they say that they just don't have any money, because they don't, right? They don't have any money to hire you. But the thing is that they can always create funding if they're really focused on that, or they can, go their own lane and kind of take some grant writing courses, read a book, that sort of thing, and start applying themselves. So they're a little bit harder in some ways to get funding for, but not impossible at all. But this is great for you if you are a startup grant writer. It is a little bit harder to get grants in the beginning for startups, so it makes it an extra challenge for you. But at the same time, once you get through that challenge, for you saying, I got federal grant for a startup nonprofit that never had one before, I've got foundation grants for them, I've been able to increase, even if they're not huge grants, that still says a lot about you as a grant writer. So that really is important for you to consider. The other thing is these smaller nonprofits, one of the pros is that, even though they may not have money, right, that's a con, but they're not as selective sometimes either, because they can't hire these super seasoned, grant writers that have been around for a long time, and so they can maybe offer you some funding and just be able to get more experience working with these smaller nonprofits. So that is definitely something to consider at all. So that is number one. Number one is you need to identify what types of nonprofits are even out there, and we went over the cash cow, the large established ones, the expanding monkey, the mid-size and expanding projects, and of course the third one, the startups, the small ones, the pups, right? So those are some things for you to consider. Number two, in your proven ways to get clients, be aware of priority funding shifts. And we covered this in podcast 73 and on YouTube, our episode 73. So please do check that out, because it really is important to understand in general all of the different shifts going on in the economy, in politics, and in society. And what do I mean by that? When there are new administrators in high places, like a new, say for instance, when we have new senators come in, when we have the new legislature come in, when we have new president, all of these different things, they really kind of look at the funding and they shift the priorities of what the federal government is. And that really does have an effect of what types of grants are out there, since the federal grants are all from funding allocations, right? So that's one thing to think about politically. And even in your own state, your own city, your own region, your own country, right? Think about the different, the different mayors that come in, the different, all of these things, that your governors, they all have their own idea of how to balance a budget. And that means what kind of contracts they're going to give out, what kind of grants they're going to give out. So really look at that. Of course, there's not only federal monies. There are also foundations, plenty of foundations that offer a variety of grants. So I would say there, follow some of your favorite foundations online, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, these sort of things, and kind of see what their priorities are and how their shifts are going. And they may really follow the economy, right? Because maybe they're a trust, they're getting monies in the door from other ways, from their corporations, that sort of thing. So you kind of have to follow the economy on that as well. But also society. What do I mean by following society? Look at all the movements that are happening around the world, right? There's this huge movement on plastic straws being banned, and we see a lot, trickle down then through grants. Maybe you can get more grants to create environmentally friendly products such as straws. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways that these huge movements, even the Me Too movement, right? Maybe there are more grants than focused on preventing domestic violence, preventing crime, preventing sexual assault, all of these sort of things. And if that's what your nonprofit does, then it's really important for you as a grant writer to understand these things and then to bring that to your clients to say, well, I know what's happening around politically, economically, in society, and be able to say, so let's apply to these grants. That makes you the expert, and that makes you stand out, and that makes you more desirable to hire because you have that ability to stay on top of it. And a lot of nonprofits just don't have that time. That's not their focus, but it's important for them to know, even to know indirectly. Number 3, all right, the third proven way to help you get clients is to understand yourself. Now, we looked externally at what kind of clients there are, what kind of nonprofits, but now what about you internally as a person? And I would like to say there's 2 different types of grant writers, and there's probably a lot more than this, but in general, right, let's just be a broad stroke. And the first one is being a generalist. Now, you may be a generalist grant writer if you love a challenge, you love new projects, you love working, with different people all around the world maybe, or all around the nation. You love working with different types of projects, and you're just on fire always every day to wake up and to learn something new, right? And you like working with different types of nonprofits as well. You like the big ones, but you also like the startups and the mid-size, and you like to have that kind of challenge. You also like to be more creative and be a lead in generating ideas and designs and all of that kind of stuff, right? Then you may be more of a generalist that likes to work with all of these different types of nonprofits. So you can be more general in your scope, right? You like to write federal grants, foundation grants, all these different agency grants. You just like to learn and learn and learn. So think of that once you're going into this. The other thing too, of course, if you're not a generalist, then you're a specialist. Some people, they're passionate about one main thing, maybe they're passionate about, my friend, her daughter has type 1 diabetes, and she's super passionate about that. She's super passionate about helping other kids have access to insulin and just spreading the word and just the education and awareness for people not to twist it up with type 2 diabetes, and just the kind of things that people that don't know about diabetes just say offhandedly to her daughter. She wants to create that awareness, and that is her main passion. She wouldn't want to be a generalist in everything. She'd want to specialize in everything about type 1 diabetes, everything about how to create awareness with youth, and be very specialized in what types of grants and in agencies that fund those grants. So she would know everything there is about those agencies, everything there is to know about those foundations. And that's what she would really specialize in, and only working with people that want to start those types of nonprofits or those types of nonprofits that already exist, right? So that's more of that. So if you're more of a specialist, you're just and how do you kind of translate that to get more clients than just one? Well, she could work with different nonprofits all around the world that actually their priority is type 1 diabetes, especially for kids. There's a lot of them all over the world. So the con to that is she might have to work outside of her city, right? Especially if she lived in a smaller city and there's only so many clients there that have that, a rural area maybe, right? So she might have to work online more and have more clients. And that might not be a con for you at all. But if you're a people person and you like to meet face to face and all of that, then you might tend to think more of a generalist grant writer. So those are other things for you to consider as well, because that is really important to know yourself as you get into grant writing, right? Who you want to work with. So generalist or a specialist. So really look at what types of, what am I really passionate about? What makes me like excited about work and excited about helping others? Do I like to help a variety of people as a generalist, or am I passionate about this one thing? And I really want to, that's what I want to be posting on Instagram, all facts about, this one thing, and just really knowing all about these grants that fund this one thing. Then you're going to be more of a specialist. All right, and the fourth way to make you an amazing grant writer is that you have to write grants. I know you all just rolled your eyes and said, right? But it's true. You have to write grants in order to be an excellent grant writer and to get clients, all right? So it's just one of those things you do and you do and you do. And no matter how many courses, no matter how many books, no matter how many blogs you read or podcasts you listen to, YouTube channels you listen to, you have to write the grants. And if you really want to know more about how to get your foot in the door so you can get more clients and just the experience of writing grants, I'm going to cover that in another YouTube channel. But anyways, there are your 4 ways that are proven that'll help you get clients as a grant writer. And I'll just recap super fast, but number 1 is to know the different types of nonprofits that are out there, right? There's the large ones, the mid ones, the startups. So know what they're like so you know who you like to work with. Number 2, beware of the priority funding shifts. Know what's going on politically, know what's going on, in the economy, and know what's going on in society. And you don't have to study the news 5 hours a day. Just kind of be up to date, kind of know what's going on. Like I said, follow people on Instagram, follow foundations on Instagram. Just kind of know what's going on that you have a better idea so you can bring that into your work. Number 3, know yourself. Do you want to be a generalist grant writer or do you want to be a specialist grant writer? Really understand what makes you passionate and on fire. Number 4, write grants. All right, you just got to keep writing and writing and writing. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you today. Remember to download the free downloadable at grantwritingandfunding.com/74 to get your quiz, right? You're going to have a checklist, but you're also going to get a good quiz to know if you're better as a generalist grant writer or if you're better as a specialist grant writer. So if you're like, I don't really know, Holly, go ahead and take the quiz and see if it comes out true, right? If that's really what you are. If you have any questions, you can email me, holly@grantwritingandfunding.com. I hope you guys all go out and make change in the world. All right.